Okay, everyone. It looks like it's just about 12:30 East Coast time, so we will begin our webinar. Welcome to all of you. I'm Susan McGuire, and I'm Director of Professional Development at ACCE, and I am happy to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. In this second of our four-part roundtable series for new membership professionals, Charleston Metro Chamber team members, Adrienne Kane and Tim Rogers, will lead a discussion on strategies to upgrade memberships to higher value investment packages. After their presentation, there'll be opportunity for questions and sharing. So before I turn the program over to Adrienne and Tim, I have just a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the presentation part of the webinar to avoid background noise. So we'll keep those lines muted while Adrienne and Tim do their initial presentation. Second, after the presentation, we'll have time for questions, and there'll be two ways you can ask questions. First, you can use the question function of the webinar. There's a question box on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just type in your question, and Adrienne and Tim will be able to see it and will answer after their presentation. You can feel free to type in the question anytime, though, during the presentation as you think of it. So if you think of something that you want to ask, go ahead, type it in, and we'll catch it at the end. If we run out of time and don't get to your question that you've typed in, or you would like to reach out directly to Adrienne or Tim offline, you're more than welcome to do that. Their contact information will be at the end of the presentation. Today, we will also offer another way to ask questions if you prefer. In the webinar panel on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a little hand by your name that you can click on to raise your hand during the webinar. If you click on that, I will unmute your line and you can ask a question or share an observation or participate. After you've finished with your question, we'll remute your line to minimize background noise and move on to any others. So we'll this way of asking questions and see how it works. Bear with us and just let us know your thoughts on this method and other methods of sharing during our roundtable calls. And third, this roundtable call is being recorded, and it should be up on the ACCE website on the Membership Development Division page by Friday, March 8th. So with that, I will introduce our speakers today. Adrienne Kane serves as the Chief Development Officer for the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Director for the Lead CHS Foundation. In that capacity, Adrienne oversees new membership sales and retention efforts, member programs and events, local area chambers, and the Chamber's leadership and young professional programming. Adrienne has dedicated his career to inspiring and leading transformational philanthropy. He's accounted for more than $100 million worth of investments ranging from technology and engineering research to local grassroots efforts. Prior to joining the Chamber, he served as the Director of Development for the Low Country Land Trust, Chief Development Officer for the South Carolina Aquarium, and the Senior Director of Development for the School of Engineering at Carnegie Mellon. He holds a BA in History and Education, an MA in Business and Rhetorical Communications, and an MPM in Public Policy and Management from the Heinz School at Carnegie Mellon. And Tim Rogers is Vice President of Membership for the Charleston Metro Chamber. As leader of the membership sales and retention teams, Tim works to increase the membership through the development and execution of sales and retention strategies that bring long-term value to members of all sizes. Prior to joining the Chamber, he worked as the Director of Sales and Membership for the National Association of Manufacturers, where he was responsible for driving their growth in the medium-sized and billion-dollar manufacturing segment, which comprised of about 65% of total membership. He also worked alongside senior management to help grow the participation of Fortune 1000 companies in membership, as well as work closely with NAM's Board of Directors. So thank you so much, Tim, for presenting today, and at this point, I will pass the presentation over to you.
Great. Thanks, Susan. Well, hello, everyone. Susan, I clearly need to shorten the bio that you have on record. That's embarrassing. Anyway, it looks like we've got a nice crowd today, so thank you all for taking time and walking through this journey. For some of you that attended the sales conference, some of this is going to be, we're going to go through a couple sort of level setting. I always think it's nice because these calls are made up of folks from across the country at different types of chambers and different types of organizations. I'm going to do a couple slides just to level set sort of who we are at Charleston Metro and what that means for us. We're a large metro chamber. We are only chamber, though. We do not have CVB and we do not have EDO. And so I know some of you on the call probably have pieces of that as part of your organization, and that can shape sort of how you go about the sales process and interacting with your members. So I'll go quickly here, and Tim's going to jump in. We certainly are open to any and all questions, and then we'll get into some of the meat as to how we go about, and we'll show you with what we've done, what it's meant for us over the last really 3 to 4 years in increasing overall investment of member and retention rates, and we've seen some really nice growth trajectory. So we'll walk you through sort of the who we are, the how we've gone about it, and then work through how you might think about applying this to your shop. So with that, if my clicker works here, hold on, why is it not working? There we go. Sorry. So Charleston Metro Chamber is made up of a tri-county region along the coastal plain of South Carolina with a population of 782,000. We are the oldest operating chamber in the country. We were founded in 1773. Only Brooklyn and New York can claim that they're older than us, but they actually stopped operating for about a decade. So we have that claim to fame. We're 1,614 members. We represent approximately 165,000 employees across our tri-county region. A few years back, 2 years ago, we did a brand survey, and this is something I would encourage all of you to work with your marketing. We actually leveraged a member company to do this, and so it's not something we ended up having to pay for. It really helped us refine what do members ask, what do members want of us in terms of the Charleston Metro? What are they looking for? And it fell into 3 primary buckets: access, information, and advocacy. Those are the 3 pieces. Now, we had 15 other items that they identified, but these were the 3 that were so far above the rest that our members are asking and expecting us to deliver on, that we've started to think about that in terms of how it affects our member benefits, how it affects the way we interact with our members, and what type of member we also recruit. So you'll see that as we go through. And I would encourage you guys to think about that. And again, we didn't do it internal. We worked with a member company in a trade situation, and they were able to do this through a really nice, thoughtful process, and ended up not costing us something. I'm sure you all have companies like that in your markets, and that can do that kind of brand survey. It was a I wouldn't call it a watershed moment, but it was certainly something that we took a great deal of value from. 3 years ago, we launched a local area chamber model, and this was a desire. Our region, probably much like a lot of yours, is growing at a robust rate. And with that, our traffic and logistics challenges of getting our members to programs really started to emerge as a central issue for us. And so we launched 4, now we'll be launching a 5th one this year, local area chambers with distinct boards in each of our geographic areas. They're led by a volunteer group. Our aim, our North Star, was to launch programs within 15 to 30 minutes of where our members work, live, and play. So if you think about it, it's a Charleston Metro Chamber East, North, Central, and South, or West, excuse me, South would be the ocean in our case, and we'll be launching one sort of in the North-North corridor. That's not what it's going to be called, but we're figuring out the name for that now. What's really been interesting is last year, and the data you have in front of you, small business participation. Of our 1,352 small businesses, we define that being 50 or fewer employees, 52% of them participated in some sort of program last year. So we had 52% of our unique small businesses do something with us in our local area chamber program. We really are pretty proud of that. It was actually 46% the year before, 52% this last year. So we're seeing real significant growth in that. Our total attendees is also 32%. We had 3,100 of our small businesses have members come to a program or event last year. Our total attendance for the year was about 9,800 people attended a program throughout the year. And so we're really proud that local area chamber constitutes about 1/3 of our total in-person engagement. Now, we also track impressions with website and other pieces, but this is talking about in-person attendance. And engagement opportunities, we had 207 different events that we tracked last year that we did throughout our Tri-County region. 87 were delivered in the local area chamber program. So you can see how this has shaped the way we interact with our members. Just to give, and I'm happy to go into another webinar later on this, or talk to you guys offline about the process we went through this. This is an entire conversation in and of itself. So is it working? And I want to run through a couple quick slides here to show you. Since 2008, our chamber, and I'm going to be really honest, we were going at a business model. We were in a TRC, Total Resource Campaign membership model. We were churning through a really significant piece of our members every year. If you look since 2015, we have significantly increased our overall retention rate. We're still not where I want us to be. We're at 84%. I think for our market, based on what I know our peers are doing, we should be somewhere in the 87 to 88%. But we know also we're getting that rarefied air where it's going to get harder and harder to retain them. Our annual drop members, again, going back to the going out of business model, we were churning through about 600 members annually back in 2008. That's dropped to an all-time low of 224 members that we dropped in 2018. We're really proud of that stat, and as you can see, the drop since 2014 is really quite significant. So all of this is driven towards building that value-added, value-centered approach for our membership. So we're excited about that. Here's where we get into the meat of the upgrade conversation. If you look since 2008 to 2018, we've had a 97% increase in the average member investment in our chamber. It's gone from just under $500 to where our average member investment is $951 at the point of sale. And so this is not sponsorship. This is not anything else. This is just at the point of sale. What's the average value that they dial into? So we're really proud. Really, if you look since 2015, that ramp up in and of itself is significant. Now, 16 is an anomaly because we did have a platinum member. For us, that means a $30,000 investor. That obviously skewed that year pretty dramatically. But that's sort of, as we walk through here, you're seeing the results of the process that Tim and the sales team have really been able to effectively do as we've articulated this. Now, what does it mean for Leadership Circle growth? For us, Leadership Circle means investors that invest more than $3,000 annually in membership dues exclusively. We've seen a 35% increase in the dollars being invested. You can see broken out by categorically the investment yields, but we've seen a 35% increase in the total dollar amount, and we've seen a 47% increase in the total number of Leadership Circle members. So that's directly correlated to our approach to really refocus the way we articulate our chamber's value. With that, too, and this is the final slide, and we'll pivot to sort of the application of this, net membership growth. We turned a corner in 2016 with net membership growth of 45 and 17, just under 100 in 2018, and we're projecting about a 90 net membership growth for 2019. And we've roared out of the gates in the first 2 months, setting, actually this month will be our second or third highest overall in the last 5 years. So we're humming off in a really great start to the year. So how do we make this work? And I'm going to turn it over to Tim because we've been very deliberate with both the type of salesperson we recruited, but also very deliberate with the type of member, and then going back to those members that are long-term members, articulating how we look for that value and ultimately that upgrade.
So when talking about upgrades, which is sort of the gist of this call, I think we have to go back and look at how we're selling our members and what we're selling our members. So Adrian's in his fourth year here at the Chamber. I'm in my third year at the Chamber. When Adrian came on board 4 plus years ago, and this is a whole separate conversation, I think he inherited quite a bit that needed some work. And something that he discovered, I'm speaking for you, Adrian, please, that he discovered early on was that just because someone can be a Chamber member doesn't always mean they should be a Chamber member. So we talk a lot about what an ideal Chamber member looks like. And when I came on board 2 plus years ago, that was something that Adrian and I talked about really from the beginning, even during my interview process, was what makes a Chamber member ideal and how do we sell to an ideal member. For us in the Charleston region, we looked at industry-specific. We looked at being industry-specific, and for us in Charleston, construction and development, software, engineering, of course, healthcare, business services, and manufacturing, which is now booming in the Charleston region, are those sort of 6 core business sectors that ideally we focus on when selling new members. And when looking at that first year experience, everyone on the call knows that the first year of membership is likely the most important year. It's how you set the relationship. A lot of what happens or doesn't happen in that first year determines their renewal. And what we came up with together, Adrian, myself, our CEO, and then, of course, our sales and retention team, was the importance of that first year, especially the orientation and the engagement in that first year. And what does that mean? So, I've joined organizations in the past where you get the form letter and you get a phone call maybe welcoming you to the organization, and then you're sort of on your own. So we're a metro chamber. I know a lot of you out there are larger chambers. Frankly, we do a lot in the community, from government relations to talent and workforce development. There's a lot going on. So in order to not inundate and overwhelm our members, we have a very strategic and focused orientation process where they come to our building, to our office, and they participate in what we call Chamber 101, which is just what it sounds. It's just an orientation for new members. We have something called Chamber 102, which is a bit deeper than 101, and then we go into the actual engagement of the member and the engagement plan for the member, what they should attend, where they should attend, what's most impactful for their business. So we looked at all of that for new members, and then took a step back and looked at our existing members, members that have been with us for 4, 5, 6 years. Some have been with us for several decades. And how do we cultivate those investors differently? And how do we then ask for an increased investment from those members? So a lot of it starts with communication. A lot of it starts with deepening the relationship. And every year we have what's called annual partnership meetings, APMs, or annual partnership calls, where Adrian, myself, our CEO, other members of the senior team go out and visit with our lead investors. And it's not a time to ask for money up front or initially. It's to learn about what they have in the pipeline, challenges they're facing, how the chamber can align and stand alongside them. From those meetings, we create a customized engagement plan. And all that really means is we're looking at our programs, we're looking at our events and opportunities, and we are recommending what's going to be most impactful for those long-term members. Oftentimes you'll get the check year after year, but you see this sort of drop-off with participation. Of course, we don't want to see that. We want to see an engaged member. So these plans have really helped to sort of refocus the member and show them where their time is best spent. We have investor briefings and early access opportunities for a lot of these lead investors. We want to offer something at the chamber that they can't get anywhere else. And I'm thinking of last year, Adrian, with some leadership circle opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this. We were throwing the kitchen sink into our member benefit sheets. And we're in the process now of finishing a process to launch a new set of member benefit sheets. And I would encourage you all to take a really hard look at what you say you're going to do for your members at the different levels. And we've actually gone from an approach of the kitchen sink of 30-plus items to where we're refining it to where we're trying to have no more than 10 to 12 items that are much more concrete, much more focused. And then the challenge, and I know this is a challenge because we've been struggling with it, and we're not perfect here, is how do you create differentiation as you move people through the spectrum of leadership circles? So for us, that means 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000. How do you create differentiation between a $3,000 and $5,000 investor? So as Tim just mentioned, in working with our advocacy team, we've packaged some opportunities. So we will do 4 quarterly briefings with our advocacy team on specific topical areas. So our legislative session is in session right now. Our lobbyists will soon be hosting a program that will be a call, and much like this to some extent, for any member that wants to participate, for an insider briefing on what's happening in the State House. And they'll be able to submit questions. We're not going to do it like this. Here you can dial in and tell me if you have a question. We're going to pre-submit those, but our aim is to bring that information in a much more deliberate manner to our members. Some of this might sound elementary to some of you. For some of the other folks, what I would really encourage you to do is look for opportunities within your chambers to pull out those elements that can be put into a very deliberate benefit for a member that they're going to see value from, and understand that that's part of the process there.
And I think in sort of this shift to this model, we realized that a lot of our members, our long-term investors, our long-term members, didn't really know what benefits they were getting. And through these annual partnership calls, through these more customized engagement plans, we were able to then really highlight the benefits of membership. From those conversations, we were then able to go in and ask for an increased investment. And so the upgrade conversation, where we're concerned, it kind of takes two different shapes. The first is sort of the obvious: you're a bronze member, you're investing $3,500 in our work. The next level of membership is $5,000. With that comes three additional opportunities to engage, three additional opportunities to raise the visibility of your brand in the community.
And I should have put this in here. So we have 325 Leadership Circle investors, those that invest more than $3,000 a year. So of those, we're using the value-added leverage point of you want to be a Leadership Circle member, but as a bronze member, you really want the differentiation and the recognition that comes with gold, silver, and platinum. Now, we know a platinum investor, for all of us, those large-scale investors are few and far between and take a lot of time to cultivate. Our goal is to bring one of those on every year, and thus far we've been able to do that. But it really is about creating that value prop and articulating it. Tim, the other thing that's worth everyone on the call knowing is we do a graduated annual increase on their membership dues. So if you pay $3,000, next year you're going to pay 2.5% more. That's a voluntary increase. In reality, we have overwhelming adoption of that. We have very few members actually that say they won't pay that voluntary increase. And so what ends up happening is a member that's 10 years into their membership, of which we have many, I'm sure you guys do too, they'll start to push up against that next tier. So oftentimes, and I want Tim to talk specifically about how he targets those, because I suspect there's some value there for you guys to really target who you're going to go after and leverage that opportunity.
Exactly. I'll go back to the benefits again when looking at upgrades. Oftentimes, our members don't know what that next level brings them through their benefits. Our bronze level membership is sort of our entry level into Leadership Circle. So when members then look at it as entry level and they look at the opportunities for visibility as a silver or gold or platinum member, I think their thinking begins to shift a little bit. And with those 2.5% increases each year, they are bumping up against that next level. So when I have a member who's bronze at $3,800, it's a lot easier to have the conversation, the upgrade conversation, to $5,000 because it's a $1,200 ask. And when you outline the additional benefits and when you really show them the additional opportunities for visibility, the decision is made right there. If you look at a list of bronze members from the Charleston Metro Chamber, it takes up an entire sheet. And then you look at our silver and gold, and there's just better visibility within those groups of members.
Something that occurred to me, and I want to transition to taking questions. We realized we're a tiered membership dues, and we technically have a $500 membership. We're hybridizing our entrance into membership. Right now, if someone off the street were to ask, we would say $1,000 is where our membership starts. In reality, for that small micro business, for a 1 to 2 person shop, we will sell a $500 member.
Or for a nonprofit.
But they're far and few between. And so what I would encourage you to think about is the current confines that you have for membership don't necessarily have to stay that way, and that's what we're doing. We're hybridizing the tiered structure to say that if you've got 100 employees, you have no option other than to be a Leadership Circle member. And quite candidly, sometimes we won't sell them. Sometimes we'll walk away from that and then come back to it later on, or figure out how to leverage a board member, or figure out how to leverage another source to get them to realize that if they've got 100 employees, they shouldn't be anyone but a silver member or a gold member in that case. And so it is about making hard choices, also knowing who you want in your membership base. So that's sort of a quick overlay. So I'm going to stop because I know that I'm hoping we have some questions and some conversation. And we're happy to go deeper into any of these topics, but we wanted to give you a quick sort of 15 to 20-minute overview here and then open it up for questions. So, Susan, with that, I'll turn it back over to you. We can keep talking if there's an area you want us to go deeper in, but I'd rather hear from you guys.
Okay, well, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Tim. And yes, if you all have any questions or any comments or anything to share, again, there's a couple ways to do that. You can type your questions into the question box on the webinar panel, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you. I'll unmute you. So in any event, we do have one question that's typed in, and that is from Diana. And the question is, what is your first-year retention rate?
So we're at about 55, 56%, not where it needs to be. And we have played around with, honestly, moving 2 years ago when when I first started our sales team, they were responsible for selling and for retaining the first 3 years of membership. I found that to be too much, and so when Tim came on board, we shifted that to where the sales team was just selling external to just members. And we took 2 salary lines and turned those 2 into retention specialists. What we found was, over the last couple of years, that we wanted even more acute attention to that first-year retention of membership. And so what we've done now is we've gone back to where the sales team, they have the first year of retention, and then they transition from that, after that first year, to the retention manager. We don't always get it right, and we're continually pivoting for higher performance and tweaking things as we go. One thing I would say is we automatically register people for our Chamber 101, and when they attend a 101, they are, I think the stats, 80% more likely
Almost 80%.
to renew the next year. And so what we've done is we've worked hard to understand our data so that we can really zero in on the triggers that will cause that member to renew.
And we're hoping, too, that with these more customized engagement plans and with road mapping the membership and the opportunities within membership, that we will see a heightened level of retention. And just from an upgrade standpoint, going back to that for a moment, the correlation between engagement plans and engaged members in the last, I'd say, 18 months and those that upgrade is great. Those that feel more engaged, obviously, are going to feel like their investment is going further.
So we have another question here. We are in the fast-growing area of North Texas. One VIP type of membership benefit that is very popular with our major investors is the VIP ribbon cutting or groundbreaking. I'd like to learn more about other innovative membership benefits for major investors. What are some additional things that you find motivating for lead investors to join at higher levels?
I can start with that. Adrian mentioned just a few moments ago the briefings for our larger investors, especially for larger companies in the Charleston metro area who may not have someone in Washington, D.C. as their government affairs rep. They rely upon the Chamber for information, for advocacy, for lobbying efforts. So I think that partnering with our advocacy and our government relations team and offering that as a benefit to our larger investors, I think is working out very well for us.
The other thing we do, and Tim mentioned the annual partnership call, but in addition to that, we've set an aim. So, and Susan mentioned this early on, I have Charles Young Professionals and our leadership programs reporting up through the division. And what that's allowed me to do is very deliberately ensure that our directors for those 2 programs are out in our leadership circle members annually doing presentations. So our Charles Young Professionals person will be out with our 26, is her goal annually. She'll be out with our 26 largest employers doing in-person onboarding sessions for their employees. Now, Charles Young Professionals is free if you're a member company for employees to participate. So we're trying hard to drive in additional value through the programs and participation in stuff that we do. So as Tim mentioned, those briefings and those insider informations are one piece, but I've always found the more people you have engaged at a company, the higher the retention rate for that company is going to be. And so we try to be very deliberate with that. So Janie and Katie are the 2 staff directors that lead those programs. They're out all the time doing presentations on their programs to lead investors to ensure that they are plugged in and know how to use our programs.
Something else that's important to our lead investors from a benefit standpoint is showcasing or highlighting their business, their facility, what they do in the region. I think we do that very well. We have an event next week, with one of our leadership circle members. They are a coatings company. They manufacture paint and coating for Volvo, for example, also a Chamber member. So we're doing a tour of their facility next week. We're giving the CEO the opportunity to speak about his company, his brand, to offer us a brief tour. That's a great way that we can highlight our members and we can help sort of grow their brand in the region.
So I'm glad Tim touched on that, because this is one other way that we have gone very deep into ensuring our leadership circle members are engaged. we really have three primary pillars or platforms in which they plug into the chamber in terms of their participation. The Leadership Circle Spotlight event is something we have 3 times a year. And what we do is for the last 4 months of activity, we invite all of the new Leadership Circle members to be recognized and introduced to the rest of the Leadership Circle. So we'll have an average of 100 or so people come to this, and they get a chance just to be recognized. This is XYZ company, they're a new Leadership Circle member. Dan is the lead for this company, and I hope you'll make him feel welcome. And we have it in really interesting places. What we found is it's a great way to bring people on in a very thoughtful way. They feel special because they get a call out. I actually think I stole this program from Dave in Kansas City. I think that David in Kansas City, he does a very similar program. And so that's worked really well for us. That was launched last year. We then, as Tim mentioned, the tour, we have Leadership Circle Socials, which are purely that. They're about getting together, those networking events we all have and sometimes hate, but we all have those. But in addition to that, and we typically do 2 of those a year for Leadership Circle investors only, we then now are also doing behind-the-scenes VIP tours at a Leadership Circle member for Leadership Circle members so that we can educate them on something that they would otherwise not have an opportunity to get to do. In the case of our chamber, it's been behind-the-scenes tours of the Ports Authority. We have the 7th fastest or largest port in the country. Sometimes it's tours of manufacturing facilities like Mankiewicz Coating or Boeing or Volvo. Those are examples of building those value pieces in and looking for those opportunities both to highlight a member but also engage other members.
Yeah, and also it helps to connect them to their supply chain as well. That was one of the biggest benefits that the tour we're doing next week that they're deriving from this.
Okay, other questions?
Okay, Adrian, I see a couple other questions. We're a small chamber of 250 members with a tiered due structure and starting developing a leadership package of 5, 10, 15K, 15,000. How do we deal with our current platinum members that only pay $3,250? $3,250.
That's a really good question. So something that is interesting, we're renaming, and I should say this, don't visit our website, it's terrible.
We're launching a new website soon, though.
You'll find with me that I will openly admit where we struggle and where we do well, and we're launching a new website in April. It'll be launched mid-April, and with this, we're going to take a lot of what we talked about today in terms of the refined member benefits. What I would recommend, and this is what we're doing, we're going to do away with the gold, platinum, silver, sort of the metallic descriptions, leadership circles. We're moving to a much more sort of designed investor, community partner, more innocuous sort of titles with that. That might be a way as you design and launch your program to not necessarily do away with them, but to integrate them into the new program in a way that still recognizes them for their investment, but moves them through the continuum. It's interesting, though, if I'm thinking about a small chamber of 250 people, starting at 5 is, I'm never afraid to be aggressive, but it might seem a little bit, if you've got a lot of investors at $3,250, I might even consider, do you start your first leadership circle level there? We're currently at 3,000, and we go 3, 5, 10, and 30. So I would encourage you to think about that. I don't mean to suggest to change your program, but they're important to you, and then you want to give them reasons why they should think about being higher.
And to piggyback on that, our chamber does this often when looking to upgrade a member, and if you're looking specifically to take your 3,250 up to the next level, is to consider a stair-step approach. Sometimes a $5,000 increase or upgrade in 1 year is too much for a company or for a member. So I think considering a 2 to 3 year stair-step approach to that next level can be appropriate at times as well, and we do that here sometimes.
Okay.
Susan, what else? I'm having a hard time seeing all the questions.
Oh, sure. Another question is, we have a challenge of getting restaurants to join. Any advice about that?
Yeah, we do too.
We do too. I think where I see success with restaurants and bars and hotels too is if we're able to engage them early on, if we're able to quote unquote show them some love, if we can bring an event or a program to their facility, if we can be very mindful about when we're in the community, where we're eating, where we're making recommendations. I have these little cards here that say, I'm dining with you today as a thank you for your chamber investment. It says something along those lines. I drop those at every chamber member restaurant I eat at. I also make it known to restaurant managers and hotel managers when I am recommending them to whether it's a personal recommendation or a professional one. I always let the manager know, hey, I just reached out to your sales lead and we're booking 3 rooms for friends that are coming in this weekend. So I just try to communicate as much as possible with those members, just reminding them and showing them of how we're supporting them.
It's a struggle, restaurants and hospitality generally, because they're much more driven about what are you going to do for me, what event are you going to have, and we all know we can't always have something at every site. Our local area chamber program with 87 programs has helped us answer some of that, but our community, probably like a lot of your communities, we have a lot of restaurants, and it's an important part. CDV not being a part of this also has a little bit of a factor because they get a lot out of that organization. It's a sister organization of ours, but we don't see any revenue from it. So, but it's one of the reasons that's also not one of our core focus areas. We're not going to actively go after restaurants because we're not going to retain them at a higher level. Also, the same reason we don't actively go after consultants. Yeah. So,
also, the turnover rate can be high with restaurants and with that industry. So, just another suggestion is to, every 6 months or so, make sure you're checking their rosters, make sure you're sending them their rosters to keep those rosters clean and to know, if there's a new manager, if there's a new sales director, et cetera.
So I see a question here is what is covered in your 102 orientation? Tim, do you want to talk about 101 and 102
Sure.
and the juxtaposition of the two?
So Chamber 101 is 8 times a year. Chamber 102 is 4 times a year. Chamber 101 is a broad overview of all things Charleston Metro Chamber. It's sort of, the who, the what, the where, and the why. It gives a broad overview of our advocacy and government relations, of our talent work. It gives a broad overview of our professional development and growth opportunities. And then the bulk of it is spent on discussing ways in which you can engage, ways in which you can access the membership benefits, and how to be successful as a member. And the gist of that entire 101 program is showing the new members that it's so important to participate. And I used to lead Chamber 101, now another colleague does, but I would always say in Chamber 101 that you have to commit to participate at least once a month in order to see and realize and recognize value. Chamber 102 is 4 times a year, and it is a deeper dive into the work that the Charleston Metro Chamber is doing. So it rotates around the room. It's 1 hour, and for 20 minutes, you will have time with our marketing folks. You'll have time with our executive office, so our CEO. You'll have time with our leadership programs, so Charleston Young Professionals, Leadership Charleston, et cetera. And then you'll have a 20-minute sort of session with our marketing and communications team. So it just goes a little deeper into the components of the chamber.
Yeah, I would summarize the two by saying 101 is okay, you're a member now. How do you utilize your membership? And then 102 is much more missional. This is what the chamber is doing, and here's how you may be able to plug into it, but that's sort of the difference between those two. I see a question here. What are the ways you focus resources to lead investors? Most of us struggle because our smaller investors are often the most demanding of our time, and boy, are they ever. It's one of the reasons that we have ghosted our $500 member. If you go to our website, $500 is not listed as an option. It's one of the reasons that we have pushed towards that $1,000 baseline member, because we know we're getting a member, and we can do that in our community. I recognize that many of you in smaller communities don't have that capacity. What I would say, and I want Tim to jump in here, is those roadmaps that we've developed and the templated roadmaps, so it doesn't take a great deal of time to produce it. Essentially what we've done is we've worked with our marketing team to create a template that can be a roadmap for that member. So our sales or retention people can plug into that. Here's what's coming up. Here's how you can be involved. Here's how you can participate. And then it becomes a matter of updating that with the next quarters of activity when they call you and say, hey, I want to get involved, or hey, I'm not using my membership, or whatever it might be. So that's been helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian pretty much covered it right there. I will say it's amazing to me that folks just don't they don't think of the chamber all day long. They don't go to our website and click on our calendar of events. And by something so simple, by creating a roadmap for these members that lists out the next quarter's opportunities for engagement, how helpful that is. And they really think, wow, you created this for me. I actually literally had an email about a half hour before this call, and I copied and pasted from a roadmap the events that are coming up in March and April, and I got the nicest email back from a member, from a small business member. You would have thought that I hung the moon. So sometimes the simple things, I think, can go a very long way.
Well, and this next question really relates to that. It's can you share a sample of your membership roadmap, maybe attached to the webinar when it's posted on ACC? Sure. And the answer is yes to that. And Tim's right. Sometimes the act of just simply sharing that is the affirmation they need as a member, and helping them to plug in. And that's what we try to do with those roadmaps. I will say it's not super slick. It's not super complex.
No.
It really is literally here's what's coming up. Here's how you can plug in. Here's what's relevant to you. So, but yes, we're happy to. We'll make sure that's included.
Okay, and guys, I think we have a hand raised also. So I'm going to try it. Cindy, if you're there, I'm going to try to unmute you. Cindy,
can you
have
hear
a
me?
question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is there a different slide we should be seeing? That was my question.
We see this slide, cultivating lead.
No, we stopped on this slide. We stopped on this slide, Cindy. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. It looks like Kathy asked, do you also do member roadmap for lead investors?
Absolutely. And the member roadmaps for lead investors look a little different than the ones Adrian and I just spoke of. The member roadmaps for our Leadership Circle investors will include opportunities to sit on an internal committee or council. If they're a developer, we have a developers council. If they're a human resources executive, we have a council for human resource executives. So those are a bit more tailored to the specific member. But we do start with sort of a shell of an engagement plan, and then we sort of add to it depending on the industry. So those take a little bit more time.
They do, and they're a little more customized. And
right.
Again, the resources of a large chamber, we have sort of 11 different standing committees and task force cabinets, and then we have a staff member that half of his job is managing the staffing, effectuating, and cultivation of those committees. And I know that's something that many of our smaller chambers won't be able to do. But what I would say is, if you're really thoughtful about who you put on there, you can leverage your volunteer leaders in such a way to achieve some of the same pursuits.
Okay, and a question came through the chat box. Are there any barriers to bronze level as an employee count?
No, we've played with this a little bit, and we're likely going to increase our base from we're playing with this now from 3,000 to 3,500, in part because of our marketplace, and we may add $500 to each of the 3, the 5, and the 10. We haven't taken the step of hybridizing that entrance level into bronze because, candidly, we have a whole lot of small businesses that care and want to be a bronze member.
Right.
And then sometimes we will have a large-scale employer that, candidly, should be a gold. We have so many new companies coming into our region, oftentimes getting to know us. It's the tester investment, and then we spend the next year cultivating them up. I'll give you an example. That's Volvo. Volvo came in as a $3,000 investor. They'll have 4,000 employees here, and we'll have the North American headquarters for Volvo. And so clearly they're not going to stay that, and they've told us that. So we saw their investment go from 3,000 to a little over 20, not all in membership, but in other things. And I anticipate that climbing again this year closer to the 50 mark, and then becoming a gold member. So those are sort of how we play that. I like to keep it a little more open so we have flexibility, but also that we can push people to think higher.
Okay, I see another hand raised. Diana, I will unmute you. Diana, you there?
Yes, hi, Diana in Dallas. Hi, Adrian. How are you?
Hey, Diana, good to see you. How are you? Or good to talk to you.
Yes, hopefully see everyone in Dallas for the sales conference.
Yay.
Tim, and I think we've got four of our team members going. I won't be there, but Tim will be with 3 of our salespeople.
Bummer. Well, look forward to welcoming everyone. My question, and it's a struggle for us on the upgrading, and we call them our total investment agreements. Do you guys do of course, the one ask, but when it comes to allocating your funds, do you just do the one bunch and you divvy it out? Or I guess the struggle we're having is robbing Paul to pay Peter. And when it comes to our larger companies, they've got their X amount of dollars and that's all they're going to give us. So is there any sort of best practice or anything you use to kind of get that extra upgrade instead of that same amount of dollars year over year?
Diane, that's a really great question, and I actually had a call recently with Stephanie Coleman, our colleague at Nashville, because they're struggling with the same thing. And the great thing about our industry is we all have the ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you do? I don't have a best practice to give you other than to affirm that we struggle with that as well. This year we played with the notion and just sort of what if philosophical conversation. We did go to a total investment yield because we also have a overarching campaign that we call Accelerate Garner Charleston, and it funds a lot of our missional work that's above and beyond membership. And it's 128 investors that invest about $1 million a year, and it also reports up through me, and we're about to go out and raise that again. And there is that constant sort of pull of it. Oftentimes it comes from the same bucket, and we know we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so, no, we haven't cracked the code, other than we do have the annual sort of summary. We give them a summary. We say, here's where you're investing. We weren't quite ready to make the move. I think Denver is a good example where they have made the move. Lance in Denver could talk to you. I think they have gone to where they have $150,000 investor, $100,000 investor, $50,000 investor, and we're not going to ask you for anything else. And for that, you get a table at the gala, you get this at this, you get, and they sort of parsed it out that way.
I will say just one thing, our division has a Monday morning meeting. I'm sure you all have your Monday morning check-ins. And one thing we do discuss, and we did it this past Monday, was, we're strategic in how we ask for these things. So if in this year it makes more sense for one of our investors to contribute or invest in Accelerate, well, then obviously I'm going to step back and I'm not going to ask for the upgrade this year. We had an example last year where I was out with our colleague Jenna, who was our sponsorship director, and it just made more sense after the meeting for us to ask for sponsorship dollars and not for the upgrade. So last year with that particular member, we asked for sponsorship. This year we're asking for the upgrade. So, I mean, speaking personally, great lines of communication with my colleagues at the chamber and sort of being strategic with our members and the asks and being patient. And
you will have just we have a common customer we have now every Monday just to kind of talk through our kind of companies and our wish list. But I think the hard part for us is that internal document and what that document looks like, and kind of I don't know if you all have a good Excel. Do you use Excel or do you use CRM for that?
So we revolved around, you're talking the document that summarizes for the investor or an internal tracking tool?
For internal tracking tool.
And it's going to sound really elementary. We actually have a Google Doc. And we went to a Google Doc because, and the nice thing, and this will be a little structure piece for everyone on the call, reporting to me, I have Tim, which is Vice President of Membership. I have Shay, which is Vice President of Development. I have our Director of Corporate Partnership. All of us are asking for different things to different people. Yep. So what we have done is our primary solicitors are responsible for ensuring their asks are logged and the investments are logged in that Google Doc. We moved to Google Doc instead of a Slack or something so that we could keep sort of constant track of it. So that's how
I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, I think overall it works well, and that's the format we've used.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Diana.
So Diana, sorry, Diana.
We have another question that was typed in. Can you go back to the first slide of 3 things companies want from the chamber and talk a little further about that?
Sure. Whoop. Okay. So we did a pretty exhaustive brand survey, and initially started as what was the brand of the chamber, and then it expanded from there to ask the question, how do members use us? And I could look for the data. I didn't have it for this slide. There were actually about 15 different points that they ranked that came up high enough statistically that they were important for us. There were 3, though, these 3: access, information, advocacy. So access, they want access to each other. They want also access to, and it parallels quickly information, they want access to what's happening in the community. They want to know it first. They want to feel like they have inside information, or at least the latest and the most accurate information. And so pairing those 2 together in really thoughtful ways has sort of changed some of the ways we communicate. And in our case, we're a hard advocacy chamber. That's the core of our DNA. And so, the great thing is that was known by our investors. They know we're a hard advocacy organization, and they expect that out of us. And so what we've done is we've played that even more. For instance, our silver investors are the only level, silver and above, are the only level to get those quarterly briefings that we're kicking off this year. So there are some things in differentiating the memberships that we've been able to play off by understanding how our investors look to us to deliver the value of a membership. I hope that makes sense and answers the question. And if someone wants to shoot me an email offline, I can dig up that brand survey, and I'm happy to share. It gets pretty data wonky, but I'm happy to share sort of the major themes that came out of that.
Okay. I don't think we have any more questions. If y'all have any last-minute questions, you can either type them in or raise your hand, and we will get to them. In the meantime, Adrian and Tim, do you have any final thoughts or recommendations or anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
Yes, the only final thought is to, and this is very simplistic, but it seems to work for me, is communicate with your members. And I think the more communication, and whatever form that takes, whether it's a social media form of communication, or it's an email, or it's a phone call, or it's being at your events and talking to your members, I think that goes a very, very long way in retention, in upgrade, in making them feel good about their investment in the chamber. So I just sort of, at the end of each day, I look and see who I've communicated with and how many members I've personally touched. And that's how I think Adrian and that's an expectation we have of the sales and retention team as well.
And then what I would add to that is Tim and 3 of our sales folks will be out in Dallas. So if you guys go to the conference, they're happy to sit down and catch a drink or talk while they're out there. And then I think we've got a team of 10 of us that are going to ACC in Long Beach, and including myself. And so you're welcome to get us there. We have a couple side meetings happening as well. And I have a presentation out there, I think, on selling missional value for investors. And so it's going to take more of a talent and workforce side of how we sell it and monetize that. So that's happening at ACCE. So let us know. And yeah, we're thrilled. We're happy to help in any way we can. So shoot us an email, give us a call, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and if you have best practices, feel free to share them with us too.
Yes,
Thank you,
Susan.
Susan.
So much. Thanks so much for presenting today. Great information. And yeah, the Charleston Metro team will be presenting both at sales training and at conference. And we hope you all will join us for one or the other or both. It's going to be awesome. Just a reminder that this webinar was recorded, and I'll post the recording along with a copy of the presentation on our Membership Development Division page by Friday. And you'll be able to find that by clicking, going to our website, www.acce.org, clicking on Networks, hovering over Divisions, and then clicking on Membership Development Division. Our next new member roundtable is scheduled for April 10th, and we'll be sharing more information on the topic and presenter for that call over the next month. So please watch for your monthly MDD e-blast for information. And if you're not on the MDD mailing list and you'd like to be, or if you have any thoughts or comments on the content of our calls or anything else relating to membership offerings at ACCE, please feel free to email me at smcguire@acce.org, and I will share that email address also with the recording. So thanks again to Adrienne and Tim for taking the time to present and facilitate, and to everyone for your participation and interest. Wishing everyone a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thanks, Susan.